G'day guys and gal, not all Space Marines are created equal, some are just way better at killing than others, but that's not all. In some cases, entire chapters are better at killing than others, with 5 standing above the rest. 5 loyalist chapters so terrifying, ruthless and violent that the Imperium has grouped them together as a bit of a special insurance policy. When something in the Imperium needs to be killed, these 5 chapters are called upon. They are called the Pentarchy of Blood, which is not only an awesome name, but it's full of awesome chapters. Some of them are fan favorites and some of them you may not have heard of, but regardless, each of them could turn you inside out with their pinky. Before we get started, I have some good news. Firstly, we had our largest ever send out of the Big E orders today. I once again apologize for how long this has taken, and I want to thank you for how patient you guys and gal have been. I will make it up to you many times over for the delays, but we're almost there. The second bit of good news is that the Majorkill 2024 cosplay calendar is nearly done, and man, it's another level. We've improved every single aspect from the previous year. The biggest bit being that I was able to get in contact with some seriously hot models, as I didn't have to autistically explain my vision for it like I had to do last year, which ended up putting a lot of people off. So we got the creme de la creme. This calendar also features an extra model, one of the most talented and renowned Warhammer cosplayers in the world, who is doing some Primarchy cosplays for the calendar. I'm very keen to show in the coming weeks. The team who will be sorting out the calendar orders is different from the Big E team, so there will be no overlap or slowdown in Big E order dispatches. Today we'll go over the Pentarchy of Blood. What is it, why it was formed, and what they have done before diving into a bit of lore about each of the chapters within it. Let's get into it. Different Space Marine chapters specialize in different things. The Raptors are expert in recon, the Imperial Fists are awesome at defense, and the Lamenters are kings of getting throat fucked by the galaxy. However, there are others that are just really good at killing shit. The best of these chapters were chosen to form the Pentarchy of Blood. These include the Space Sharks, the Flesh Terrors, the Charnel Guard, the Red Talons, and the Death Eagles. Even if you haven't heard of all these, you can probably agree that their names are super badass and suitable for chapters that are great at killing. The Pentarchy of Blood was formed in direct response to a massive heresy that occurred in the 33rd millennium. This heresy was called the War of the False Primarch, and while it's mostly a mysterious, unknown affair that I'll cover in a different video, what we do know is that 11 Space Marine chapters broke off from the Imperium. Now, if there is one thing that the Imperium doesn't tolerate, it's people trying to leave it, so they declared these 11 chapters as traitors in need of extermination. The Pentarchy was formed, with the Imperium deliberately choosing the chapters that they knew had zero hesitation and zero mercy. Chapters that didn't give a fuck about the bonds of brotherhood between other chapters and wouldn't be swayed by whatever force had taken the original 11. The Pentarchy proceeded to exterminate the 11 chapters, which is nuts to think about. 5 chapters versus 11 should be a very one-sided war, but as far as I can tell, the Pentarchy did it without too much drama. It's not clear if it was because they did a 5v1 11 times, or if they were just so good at killing that even being outnumbered over 2 to 1, they still came out on top. For good measure, they also destroyed each of the traitors' chapters' homeworlds. As awesome as the idea of the Pentarchy just taking out the 11 chapters in one epic battle, the war went for 80 years, so I assume it was a lot of skirmishing, followed up by the Pentarchy seizing their chance to massacre each chapter one by one. Although this was the end of the Pentarchy as an official thing, these chapters are remembered as fantastic Space Marine killers and utterly ruthless, so they're often used to put down renegade chapters. For example, during the Bad Dab War, where in a similar fashion to the War of the False Primarch, a bunch of previously loyal chapters banded together against the Imperium, the Space Sharks emerged from the deep of the void to lick some tits. In another ruthless instance, the Charnel Guard purged hundreds of billions of people who were believed to be tainted, something not many Space Marine chapters would agree to. The point is, these guys kill first and just never ask questions. So now we know what the Pentarchy of Blood is, let's look at some of the more interesting fun lore regarding each of its members. Let's start with the Space Sharks, since they're probably the most well known. The Sharks are a very isolated chapter that prowl the edges of the galaxy, intercepting and killing potential threats that try enter into the Milky Way. They are mostly a Raven Guard successor, but due to their brutality and severe mutations, it's also believed that their gene seed is actually a blend of multiple legions, notably the Night Lords and even potentially the World Eaters. That would explain a lot. These mixed chimeric chapters are known for being incredibly powerful, but also with some drawbacks, with the Space Shark gene seed making them look very scary and also giving them a chance to develop the Chill of the Void, a strange mental illness where the Space Shark becomes extremely antisocial and extremely keen to kill the bad guys. Sometimes the Space Sharks will be gone from Imperial space for so long that when they return, nobody knows who they are, and only by verifying their ancient but still valid codes are the Space Sharks accepted. The chapter master of the Space Sharks is Tithe the Red Wake, the largest Space Marine in the galaxy who is was an absolute beast in battle, wielding chainsaw lightning claws which may have been Corvus Corex's old siege gauntlets. He also has a fucking terrible skincare routine because the man is very ugly, but since he's killing Tyranids 24/7 around the galactic rim, I'd say that isn't the biggest deal. Next up is the Charnel Guard, and man, what a name. Something to consider is that all these chapters are super old, since the War of the False Primarch was only a couple thousand years after the Horus Heresy. The Charnel Guard are considered to be a successor of the Blood Angels chapter, however the Blood Angels themselves don't recognize them as such, which is bizarre. After all, they were one of the chapters that defended Baal from the Tyranids and would actually survive that incursion. They are also distinguishable by their very long canine teeth, even longer than normal Blood Angels. GW loves sprinkling in a bit of mystery in some of these older chapters, with the Charnel Guard being a good example. Like when they aren't on campaign, they literally just put themselves in stasis crypts. This is just a random headcanon spitball, but maybe they are the result of an experimental mix of Blood Angel and Space Wolf gene seed, explaining their elongated canines, their extreme brutality, and the Blood Angels not really accepting them. Just a thought. Next up, we have the Red Talons. These were one of the rare Iron Hand successors that were created at the end of the Horus Heresy. I say rare because a fuckload of Iron Hands died during the Heresy, so there wasn't really much of a legion left to split up. During the Heresy, a lot of Iron Hands kind of lost their shit, which is pretty understandable. Half of them teamed up with Shadrach Medusan for tactical cold guerrilla warfare. A big bunch split into small teams that did what they could behind the scenes, while the remainder joined up with Ortec Maw and went hectic genocide mode on the traders, destroying their recruitment and supply worlds, killing a shitload of people in the process. When the Heresy ended, all the super angry, unstable, and volatile Iron Hands formed the Red Talons. As a part of this, it seemed that they had abandoned their practice of their parent legion in regards to cutting off their hand and replacing it with a bionic. Due to their rage at what happened to their legion, anyone they see as unfaithful or unloyal, they exterminate with extreme prejudice, making them ideal for killing Chaos Space Marines or even just renegade chapters. The Death Eagles are an interesting one. Although they seem super emo and goth and allegedly have Raven Guard gene seed, there may be more to them than meets the eye. Firstly, because the Raven Guard have fuck all successes, and the ones they do have are all super sketchy and weird. See Space Sharks, Ashen Claws, and so on. But also because the Death Eagles' original colors were purple and white, and there was a detachment of the Emperor's Children called the Death Eagles. What is more than likely is that this chapter was a force of Emperor's Children that stayed loyal to the Imperium and fought against their legion during the Heresy. Then upon surviving the Heresy, they would have approached the higher-ups of the Imperium in secret, being rewarded for their loyalty by getting a fresh start and having their gene seed origins obscured. Perhaps the chapter was actually given Raven Guard gene seed to use from then on, with only maybe a handful of the original Emperor's Children gene seed still floating around in the chapter. This would explain why they'd be so ruthless. They are purging the taint of their history, making amends for the crimes of their forebearers. There's also a good chance that they felt indebted to the Imperium, more so than usual, for giving them a second chance, so they were happy to join the Pentarchy of Blood, a role that would ask a lot from them. The Death Eagles are a pretty obscure chapter though, with there not really being much in the way of hectic lore about them killing a bunch of bad guys. And finally, last but definitely not least, we have the Flesh Tearers. It's pretty much a given that the Flesh Tearers would be on this list. Nothing shouts Pentarchy of Blood more than these dudes. The Flesh Tearers are one of the most hardcore, violent, and vicious Blood Angel successors. They see the Red Thirst and Black Rage as important to the culture of the Blood Angels, the struggle against it making them who they are. As such, each Flesh Tearer is constantly teetering on the edge of the rage each battle, losing themselves in a similar way that a World Eater does. There have been instances that upon killing the enemy, the Flesh Tearers will then kill their guardsmen allies as well, as they are so blood-fueled that they lose sense of friend and foe. The chapter was created by Nasir Amit, taking the most violent and wrathful Blood Angels to join it, Blood Angels that wanted eternal retribution for the death of their father. Despite that, Nasir was also a man of honor, who said what no one else would. He was the one that said to Sanguinius after they were ambushed on Cygnus Prime, "Oi dad, I think Horus is a bit of a shithead traitor, eh?" Nasir Amit would die at some point, with the implication that he fell to the Black Rage. However, their modern day chapter master, Gabriel Seth, is a legend in his own right as he honors the legacy of his chapter while trying to save it from extinction. Like Nasir, Seth is a massive asshole, but he's also a straight shooting honest man who would have your back. There is no one better to have in your corner than a Flesh Tearer. So those are the 5 chapters. You may see some common things amongst each of them. They are all outcasted in some way, maybe because they are so violent, or maybe because their gene seed is sus as fuck. Either way, I do hope we continue to see more and more of these chapters. They are just good old fashioned fun. If you enjoyed the video and you want to support the channel, then Patreon is the place to be, where we have not only a boatload of Battle Mace 40 million hentai, but also a bunch of live action nude cosplay photos. Hit the subscribe button and hit the real subscribe button for more bloody content. Join the Discord for more memes and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.